You know what's funny is they had some prenatal vitamins that before I got pregnant, or before I knew I was pregnant, I was taking prenatal gummies because they taste good, like they taste like candy. And so I was like, I want a vitamin. And some people were like, well, take a prenatal because that's like really good for your hair, skin, nails, and stuff. So I was already taking prenatals before I even knew that I was pregnant. So I was like, when I found out I was pregnant, thank God, like I was already taking prenatals. That's awesome. Baby will have a lot of hair. Well, good. It'll take after me and not Ken. I wanted something with like AI technology. I want only the best for my baby. Essentially, our baby will have 2 nurseries because I can't live with Ken. I'm on parole. I could spend 2 days a week at Ken's apartment. So essentially the baby will have a nursery here and the baby will have a nursery there. When do I plan on moving out? You know, as soon as I'm off parole. You know, I'm not gonna live at home forever. Alright guys. Well, I'm sorry my phone died. I'm gonna charge my phone a little better next time. But I'm kind of stationary because I'm kind of tethered down. No, I am not on house arrest. I can prove it. So these are my feet. Okay? No ankle monitor. I'm not on house arrest. I'm not going back to prison.
Friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Friday, August 9th, 2024. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. You friends. Okay, yesterday we did a video and we talked about some possible restrictions that have been placed on Gypsy Rose related to her parole, related to some of her behavior offline, online with her friends, contacting inmates, possible reaching out to individuals that are connected to Nick Godejohn and the like. And all of this has been captured online. It was Gypsy's friend Bree who basically was busted, telling Gypsy to lie to her PO, and Gypsy saying, well, I guess I'll find out my fate tomorrow. Now, there's been a lot of questions about whether or not she's going to go back to the clinker, and yesterday, I also said it was my suspicion that she might be given restrictions about social media because she hadn't been going live. So naturally, Gypsy had to go live in order to debunk this. Now, I'm of the opinion that Gypsy is a very manipulative person. And this is because of my own interactions with her. In fact, I know for a fact she used to do this with someone named Nina, Flawless Nina, who she is someone that she cannot stand. So Nina would post something and then Gypsy would post something to her stories or to her feed, to her videos or to something to prove them wrong. And Gypsy herself has also admitted on the Lifetime show that she will post things to her haters about rumors or whatever to shut down conversations. It's manipulation tactics. So today, Gypsy wanted everyone to understand that I don't have an ankle monitor on my foot and I am free and I'm not on house arrest and I have no restrictions. Yet she accidentally did a couple things that made me kind of question her story.
I have a very short fuse right now, but I'm doing the best I can. Thankfully, I'm in therapy, and I talked to my therapist about the things that bother me, and I'm able to get like really good insight. So my emotions are on beyond a 10. They're like a 12 and above. I have to stick to facts and what I know instead of my emotions, because if I let my emotions lead the way, my perception gets changed and that just makes for a whole mess. But unfortunately we can't live together because I'm on parole. So I can go sleep at his apartment for a few nights, and that's been like okayed by my PO. My PO already told me you can stay at Ken's for a few days, a week. But this, living with my parents, I live with my parents for like at least another 11 months.
So these lives were from earlier in July, and in these lives, Gypsy is talking about her increased escalating anger and how she's very emotional and getting very easily triggered and going off. Even in today's live, she talked about Ken not finding his shirt and not being able to find his shirt was going to send her into a spiral. And she joked about it. And then on July 30th, while she was live, someone asked her about living with Ken. And in that video, she said she could stay at his house for a couple days, even a week, and it was all okay with her PO. But that was never the truth. And today, when she was asked, her response was completely different. And she said that due to her parole, she can only stay at his house or go to his house. She didn't say stay at his house. She said she could only go to his house 2 days a week. July 30th, she says up to a week. August 9th, she says 2 days.
Essentially, our baby will have 2 nurseries because I can't live with Ken. I'm on parole. I could spend 2 days a week at Ken's apartment. So essentially, the baby will have a nursery here and the baby will have a nursery there.
Gypsy also made a point of having to show her ankles and try to show that she didn't have an ankle monitor. And I don't know that anyone here said that she had an ankle monitor or that she had been fitted for an ankle monitor or anything of the sort, but she had to show off her legs multiple times. It got a little bit strange towards the end though, because she ran out of power on her live and she said that she was tethered down and so she needed to stay. Ankle monitors are taken off when you go in the shower, and when she started the live, she actually had just gotten out of the shower and she was doing her makeup. You can take them off when you're in the shower and you have to put them back on. They're not all waterproof, and a lot of the companies don't recommend that you wear them in the shower. So when they're off, you don't have it on, but it's still near you. They also need to be charged. So I thought when she said she was tethered down, that was a very interesting choice of words. But again, I never said that she had an ankle monitor. It only seemed as though she had been placed on house restrictions due to some violations she had related to her parole. Of course, Gypsy, who is known to lie and has lied in the past, I want to remind people that she is the same woman that said that she and Ken never hooked up at all in the beginning of April, that they were just friends, and now we know that they hooked up. She's the same woman that said that Ken and her relationship had nothing to do with her split with Ryan, and Ryan and Lifetime proved that she and Ken were hooking up in February, or at least talking in February. So I don't take a lot of credence to anything that she says. But to give you an understanding of what supervising restrictions and strategies are for someone on parole in the state of Missouri, this is directly from their handbook. It says that the Department of Corrections has developed a continuum of supervision strategies. These strategies include, but are not limited to, an initial assessment phase and then 3 intervention level phases: electronic monitoring, day reporting, residential facilities, a community release center, community supervision centers, and institutional treatment centers. Your needs and risks to the community will be assessed regularly during your supervision period to determine the program or intervention level that is best for you. Each strategy has its own rules and program requirements, and you are responsible for completing any supervision strategy to which you may be assigned and for abiding by all rules and program requirements pertaining to the supervision strategy. So when she was paroled, she was given no ankle monitor. She was not given a lot of restrictions. She was able to go places and she was able to do things to a degree, but she still had to be at her address when she wasn't working. And she was only allowed to go out with certain people, and she had to check in with her PO, okay? So she's gotten into a bit of trouble as of late. And as you know, she was caught on live basically saying that she would have her fate found out by her parole officer. So it's possible that she may not be on electronic monitoring. She could be on day reporting, which means that every single day she has to check in with her PO. They could, if it gets to a point where she has to have electronic monitoring, which they do give an ankle bracelet for. She could also be placed in a facility like a halfway house or a community release, a residential facility, or a community release center, which is like a halfway house, a community supervision center, or a treatment center. And these are all done before someone would be put back into prison. And here's the thing. they don't want to necessarily put her back in prison, and they may find at any time while she's on prison that the current restrictions she has are not working. And it's clear that based upon what happened with her talking to inmates, that she went from saying, I can stay at Ken's 7 days a week to I can only spend 2 days. 2 days. According to the rules in probation and parole, she is required to have a home plan, and that home plan includes where she's going to parole to and what will be her primary residence. Under the stipulations of the law of the parole board in Missouri, primary resident means where she spends most of her time. It means she cannot just simply spend time at somebody's house for days upon days upon days, because at any point in time, her PO can stop in at her primary resident. And if she is not there, she can get violated. Gypsy is very, very, very interested in controlling narratives here and doesn't want anyone to know about the parole violations. She doesn't want people to know that she might have an ankle monitor. And even if she doesn't have an ankle monitor, she could be doing what's called day reporting. But either way, it's clear there's been changes to her spending time with Ken, which is what I told you about yesterday. Ken has outstanding fines and court cases in the state of Texas for whatever reason, and due to that, he is not deemed as someone she can spend all her time with, and she cannot parole to him because under the requirements of parole inmates are either going to be released to a family member or to a halfway house, or else they have to get someone else approved, which includes the parole board going through that person's background to determine if they are suitable for someone to have parole, to take care of on parole. Ryan passed because he's a teacher, he has a clean record, he had a good job. I don't think Ken would pass because of these cases that he just won't clean up. He has inconsistent employment, and he's had cases in multiple different states, whereas Ryan has none, and he has unstable employment. So with that said, I didn't feel a lot really changed in my opinions about the information I was received. She's still in trouble, but she has an image to maintain, as well as this is being filmed. So certainly she doesn't want to give out spoilers to the public that she was, given new restrictions. And it certainly wouldn't help her image of being on a journey to reform, right? Okay, so we know now that there has been escalating tempers and flaring tempers at their house. We know that her parents have been arguing. We know that neighbors have said there have been police called. We know that it's not just neighbors that are talking about this escalating discord at the house, but it's family members, it's friends. A lot of people are coming out of the woodwork because they're frankly just tired of Gypsy and her family profiting off the demise of what she did to her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard. Last night, I was actually on a panel on Ivory Rose Knows on her TikTok. And while we were on panel, a family friend of Dee Dee's, who is friends with Dee Dee's sisters, came on to the panel to talk about some of the claims that Gypsy made in the book that she wrote and whether or not the sisters do plan to sue Gypsy. Basically what the friend said, and I was trying to find video of it, but I don't think I took video of it. But basically what the friend said was that presently, at least from her knowledge, there was not discussion about the sisters suing Gypsy. However, that is not off the table in the future. It's interesting because the family seems to believe that Gypsy is going to be sued by one of the sisters. And yet the family comes out and says, no, not right now. I think it's the idea or the possibility that maybe it will happen, or perhaps they don't want to play their cards or show their cards quite yet. Either way, what the friend did say is that the grandfather is 86 years old. This is the grandfather that Gypsy accused of essaying her as a child. This is the same grandfather that the friend that Gypsy accused of essaying Dee Dee, and that Dee Dee confided in her that he did this to Dee Dee. According to the friend, this never happened. And they claim that the soundbite that they got of the grandfather was apparently somehow construed incorrectly, because the way he described it, it's like when a little kid comes walking up to you and they just start grabbing you and it's in the wrong places. nothing in a manner that is of the nature of the sexual kind. But they were adamant that he did not ever do that to Gypsy. And they were even more adamant that he never did that to Dee Dee. As far as like all three of them taking baths together, the friend said the house is very small, the bathtub is very small, and there would never be room for her grandfather, her mom, and her all in a bathroom and a bathtub together. Gypsy has routinely accused people of doing things to her that didn't happen. And so while I never want to say it didn't happen or not believe a victim, she has a pattern of saying things like she allowed Nick to R her. That was their agreement after they unalived her mom. And then she changed it years later and said, well, it started consensual. And then I said it wasn't. She tries to get revenge on people once she's mad at, like once she's done with them. When it came to Ryan, she all but accused him to me of nearly getting physically violent with her. And there was absolutely no evidence of that on the show. And she told me that we would see it all on the show. She told TMZ we would see this altercation. It never aired because it probably didn't happen. The friend also stated that it's absolutely false that Dee Dee ever chained Gypsy to a bed for 2 weeks. What she said about Dee Dee was that Dee Dee and Gypsy had a tenuous relationship, but close to the end of Dee Dee's life, she was very ill and she was dealing with complications from diabetes, complications from her heart condition, and complications from gout, making her at times bedbound. And Dee Dee wouldn't put her on a leash like that because, frankly, this story doesn't compute to how the bedroom was actually set up. And she wouldn't have, as Gypsy said, have to go to the bathroom on herself because they were in the same bed. Why would Dee Dee want to sleep in a bed with Gypsy and have her going to the bathroom on the bed? It's a lie. It's just a flat out lie. It doesn't mean that Dee Dee didn't have to take away things or punish Gypsy at times for her behavior. There's actual text messages of Dee Dee saying she took away Gypsy's computer for posting inappropriate messages and inappropriate conduct towards her father and making accusations towards him and blaming him for her being sick. But she said she took the laptop away for 2 days, and Gypsy said her mom smashed the laptop and broke it and tied her up. I don't know about that. I don't know. What I do know is that Dee Dee did cover for Gypsy a lot. Everyone covers for Gypsy. Christy covers for Gypsy. Dee Dee found ways to blame Aaliyah for things. She found ways to, try to excuse her bad behavior, explain away what Gypsy was doing. But it appears, though, that towards the end of her life, Gypsy's escalating behavior was really hard for Dee Dee to manage, and Dee Dee herself was dealing with her own illnesses. All that to say is the family said that the family wants nothing to do with Gypsy. So basically, their position is this. Gypsy is lying about Dee Dee, is lying about the grandfather, is lying about what Dee Dee did to her, and is blaming Dee Dee for what Gypsy did to her. The family, specifically her sisters, loved Dee Dee, loved her, and the ashes were never, ever flushed down the toilet. In fact, the friend said that Dee Dee's sister has an urn of Dee Dee's ashes at her house. So she cares about Dee Dee. They care about Dee Dee. And all of them were just heartbroken and disgusted by this entire media blitz that Gypsy's been on for all these years, discrediting Dee Dee to justify what she did to Dee Dee. And the family acknowledges that Dee Dee wasn't a perfect mother, definitely was a con, wrote bad checks, had a propensity to take out credit cards in other people's names, stole money from people in the family. They don't deny that. But that kind of criminal activity, which is petty in the grand schemes of what Gypsy did to her mother, doesn't compute to what Gypsy did, right? So they said, yes, she ran this con with Gypsy, but Gypsy was in on it. That's what they said. They said Gypsy full well knew about the fact that she could walk. She also knew that she didn't have leukemia. They said Gypsy was aware that there were some things that her mom was claiming, and they were claiming these things in order for Gypsy to get free trips, money, gifts, houses. It was a way to run a scam to get stuff so that Dee Dee could stay home and care for her daughter. It's not ethical. It's totally wrong, but it's not like what Gypsy did to Dee Dee. As far as the surgeries that Gypsy needed when she was younger, what the friend said is that Gypsy was sick as a child, and that Gypsy still has ongoing health conditions, and that Dee Dee wasn't lying about those conditions. They said it was known when Gypsy was younger that she had a chromosomal disorder, and that some of the issues she was dealing with were related to this chromosomal disorder, and that the surgeries on her eyes and on her throat, her ears, the salivary glands was all connected to this. Same with the feeding. None of that was because she wasn't sick. And she still has this. She still has this microdeletion. And the friend said, and it's obviously still affecting Gypsy. They're just denying it. And the way that the friend framed it around Rod is that they think that Rod is in denial. And the reason they think Rod is in denial is that Rod believes that all of it was fake because he doesn't want to live with himself for abandoning a child that was sick. And so he'll deny that this was ever needed, and he'll paint Dee Dee as a monster because he neglected Gypsy so much, walked out of her life, wasn't around. And I understand he was out working on the offshore rigs and he was gone for months at a time. And I understand in this culture, when the men are out working, it's very hard and they don't have the capacity to always have the best relationships with their kids. And the task and the burden falls onto the moms to take care of the kids, and the dads have distance relationships with their families, even with their own children. And so it's not outside of the norm that he wouldn't have had the best relationship with his kids, even his own children at home. But he did not make an effort with Gypsy. And he was taken to court numerous times for failure to pay child support. So not only did Dee Dee have to take him to court in 95, but she also had to take him to court in 99. And there was a criminal case actually opened against Rod for failure to pay and non-support. He was sentenced to 10 days in jail. It was suspended and he was put on probation. And he was ordered to pay child support in 99 of $350 a month, not $1,100 like he claimed on the show. And he was ordered to catch up with everything in 99 and 2000 when Gypsy was almost 10 years old. He also claimed that he hadn't seen Gypsy walk since she was 3, but Gypsy didn't start using a wheelchair until she was 9. So I think Rod just has, according to the friend, guilt about the fact, or in on the con, as the friend said. Guilt that he allowed the con to go on, but also because he never went to any of these doctor's appointments, that he's ignorant and he refuses to acknowledge that this is going on. But also because it's a chromosomal deletion and it can be hereditary, and because Dee Dee didn't have it, they also think he might be in denial because he's not getting the testing and he doesn't want to be the cause of what happened to her. So if he doesn't get the testing to find out if he passed this down to her, and he can just deny that she has it, it's easier for him. It's easier for him to claim that what Dee Dee did was all a lie and all fake and all to hurt Gypsy. His position is that Dee Dee did all of this in a vindictive way to get back at him for abandoning his daughter. If you look at it from Dee Dee's side of the house, it's quite different though. Rod was a 17-year-old young man that got multiple women pregnant in the span of 6 months, fathered 2 children born less than 6 months apart, both girls with 2 different women. Rod, according to Christie's texts, was drinking and on drugs. And the friend said on Gypsy, when Dee Dee and Rod got engaged, or when they got married, someone had to bail Rod out of jail, allegedly. Rod wasn't on the up and up. He was wild, and he was very immature, and he made really bad decisions. From Dee Dee's perspective, he was unreliable to his daughter. He was drinking and doing drugs. Dee Dee was not. Dee Dee was tasked with having to take care of this child on her own, and had an ex-husband that wasn't paying child support and was consistently falling behind on child support to the extent that multiple times she had to go back to court to enforce him to pay child support. All of this left Dee Dee financially strapped and required to come up with all the money to help her daughter get the services, the medical insurance, and the help that she needed for her chromosomal deletion and the medical conditions that came with it. So Rod, going along with the narrative that was all Munchausen's, allows him to absolve himself of that bad behavior and deny that any of it was needed and that it was all just vindictive by Dee Dee to get back at him. Is it more probable that she actually had, if you look at the records, a chromosomal deletion, which is in the medical records, and actually needed ear tubes and eye surgery and her salivary glands removed and a feeding tube, which is all backed by reports and testing done in the hospital? It seems far-fetched that Dee Dee would make this all up just to get back at Rod. It almost feels like it's a narrative that was created by Christy so that they could absolve themselves of neglecting Gypsy and blaming Dee Dee for her own death. This is a couple that says Dee Dee deserved it. They have no sympathy whatsoever for her. And this is the same man that says that Dee Dee controlled and kept her like a prisoner, and yet Christy is as controlling, if not more, of Gypsy. They have another thing that the friend said is that Rod and Christy are intentionally hiding money from the family and from the law so that the victims and the estate of Dee Dee can't go after it. So they're intentionally putting trust funds in their names with Gypsy's name nowhere to be seen and only in like their names or in Mia's name. They're not paying Gypsy for anything intentionally so that Dee Dee's family can't collect on it if they even were to sue, because Gypsy would say, I'm broke. So they said that the Blanchards have basically made it very difficult for them even to take legal action because of how dirty they're playing and the laws that they're finding loopholes to get around. And when you think of how dirty that is, they're the ones that want all the money. They're the ones that have their names on all the money. Dee Dee's family can't get access to that money. Gypsy has to assume that her parents are going to give her that money. But the friend also said that Rod and Christy used some of that money on a remodel on their home and have been using that money for themselves, not just Gypsy. Their opinion was that Rod was a deadbeat father that only came back once Gypsy was in prison because he could make money and a payday was coming. And look what they've accomplished. Rod said, I can't control what Lifetime does. They want to pay her for her story. It's all about money. Where was this family when Gypsy needed someone and Dee Dee needed someone to help with the medical care? Can you imagine if in a different world, maybe if Rod would have stepped up and actually contributed and helped financially for his child like he should have, that Dee Dee might not have had to resort to the con? The friend said that before Dee Dee met Rod, she had never been into conning, and it was Rod that got her into it to begin with. When you start to look at the different sides of the story, you start to see that one side has had a very loud voice and another side, the side of the victims, has been completely silenced. And in a story where we're supposed to not shame victims, in this case, we've allowed sympathy for a child who claimed to be the victim override the fact that a mother may not have been the villain that she portrayed her to be. Gypsy has a propensity to lie. She will not stop lying. She is on restrictions. She is in trouble with her parole board. And the friend said they are waiting until Grandpa dies. And once Grandpa dies, it's all gloves are off. They are willing to fight. They will fight Gypsy. They will take her to court. But for now, they don't want to add any more stress to the grandfather, but they continue to worry for his safety because of the lies that Gypsy has said about him and the stigma that she's attached to him that they say is not true, that they now are worried for his safety. This is the damage that Gypsy caused and inflicts on people. An elderly man now fearing for his life because of one of maybe Gypsy's crazy fans might show up at his house and try to unalive him because she said he did something to her when she was a child that he says never happened. Gypsy and the lawsuits and the family dynamics continue to unravel, and we'll be here to talk about it all. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed. If you've been affected by the family, make sure to email me at tips@withoutacrystalball. You can DM me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Bye, everyone.